Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, yo. Man, I'm not sure where to start with this one. Shout out to everyone in the chat. I appreciate all of your patience. This is the craziest, honestly, I think the craziest trade in NBA history. I'll paint a quick picture and just for full transparency, I still have more writing and reporting and stuff to do tonight, so I'm going to go about 30 minutes in all seriousness. But second I'm done with that, I will hop back on. I know for some of you, you might be asleep, but I will be going live likely a second time tonight and then some point tomorrow. So I will have another couple lives coming, but just quick 30-minute reaction here. So we were in the press room at MSG when this happened. It was myself, Kobe Price, Dave McMenamin, Dan Wojcicki, and another reporter. And the reporter just yells out, Luka just got traded to the Lakers. And we're like we were just in the locker room with LeBron and everybody. Obviously, AD wasn't there because he got sent home due to his ab injury. But we're like, he's like, Shams just tweeted this. So we go look and we see Shams tweeted that. But we all think he got, we're like, this is not real. He got hacked. Like, there's no way this trade just happened. And obviously, he quickly puts out the second tweet. We we each get on the phone immediately with our editors and with different sources and different people we were talking to. I could just say that in talking to several people with the Lakers, this came as a complete shock. This was not something that had been in the works for there are the jokes and the memes about Rob moving in silence, and clearly this is the latest example of that. But this was not something that had been like some secret plan for a month or even a couple of weeks. Like my understanding is this came together rather quickly, and it was something that the Lakers had complete sign off in terms of the top down from within the organization. Now, but in terms of like the team, and like I just talked to Max Christie in the locker room, and I just transcribed his post game answers for our group documents. So none of the players were acting weird. There was no weird vibes. Like if anything, it was positive. The Lakers just won tonight, beat the New York Knicks by 16 points in what I was going to come on here and talk about as arguably their best win of the season when factoring in no AD and on the road where they've really struggled this season. So coming off one of the best, I think at a minimum, it's their second best win. It's between that one and the Boston one, but coming off one of their best wins of the season, you have LeBron go for 33-point triple-double. Austin was awesome. They won this centerless minutes. Max had some big buckets in the fourth. Like, it just was there was really positive. Lakers just went 4-1 on this gravy trip in the non-LA portion. And then this seismic move just comes out of nowhere. This move that is going to define, I think, the Western Conference for years to come, define the Lakers and Mavericks franchises for years to come. And so due to the limited time, I'm going to just get straight into it. From the Lakers side, I think you had to make this trade. And it's still like I'm still processing all the components of it, and I will read you guys the full trade here. So 3-team trade between the Lakers, Mavericks, and Jazz. Obviously, Anthony Davis and Luka Doncic are the two big pieces, but the Lakers get Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris from the Mavericks. The Lakers send out AD, Max Christie, and their 2029 first-round pick. As you guys saw in my last Boot House Block episode, there was no Luka Doncic on that trade list, but he clears the rest of the list. Then the Jazz get JHS, the Clippers 2025 second-round pick, which the Lakers owned, and then a Mavs 2025 second-round pick. So that is the full trade. For the Lakers, like, I think this is primarily, we can debate in the short term what this group looks like, and I still think that there's obviously, like, they got to make a second move here at some point in the next 4 to 5 days with the trade deadline coming up. There are holes in this roster. They got worse defensively. They need a starting center, and that AD had been clamoring for. Like, he got it now in Dallas with Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, but for the Lakers, like, now it's Jackson Hayes, Christian Wood, Christian Coloco, Trey Jemison, like, Maxi Kleber's injured, not sure when he's going to be back yet. So, the Lakers need a center more so than ever before. But long term, you as the Lakers are set up now. You got a 25-year-old generational talent, a guy who has already led his teams as the best player to the conference finals and the finals, a guy who across the league and even from LeBron himself has been compared to LeBron as arguably the closest player we've seen to LeBron in terms of skill set, of that size, that ability to score and play make, that ability to, with basketball IQ and manipulating in the pick and roll. Like, Luka is arguably the closest thing we've seen to LeBron from a skill perspective. Obviously, they play a different style, and LeBron is in a different stratosphere athletically and even accomplishment-wise, obviously. But Luka at 25, I think looking at Luka at 25 and AD at 31, about to be 32 this year, just straight up, I think Luka's the better player and the player you'd want long-term. And I will touch on some of the concerns with him. But Lakers have the next face of the franchise. Like, there've been a lot of talk about what's the post-LeBron plan, what's that going to look like. Lakers have it now. They have, I think, a top 3 player in the league for my money. And this was before the trade. I was saying on here, I thought Luka was the second best player in the league behind Jokic. And you could put Giannis or Shea in that conversation of like that top 4 and order it in any order. For me, I think looking at his playoff pedigree and just his skill set and the way he can manipulate defenses, I've had Luka second on that list. But like the Lakers are set up now for whenever LeBron decides to retire or whatever happens with him moving forward, you have a guy who theoretically can be the face of your franchise for the next 7 to 10 years. And that to me is like, NBA history shows the Lakers always get the next great star. And I think Luka is has the potential to be in that lineage of LeBron and Kobe and Shaq and Magic and Kareem. And that's a high bar, and he has to win championships to eventually get there. But I think if you were looking at Denver, I don't think Jokic was going to be available. Victor Wembanyama, I don't think he was going to be available. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I don't think he was going to be available. So and look, I didn't even think Luka was going to be available, but among like realistically looking at the market, like most of those teams are either thriving or on the way up. Dallas had kind of been in having a weird season. So, I don't think you're going to get a better player for Anthony Davis than Luka Doncic. Now, as for the cost, obviously the cost is high. Like, AD is the Lakers' best player. He is their best two-way player, and I think that the Knicks' performance was impressive, but I don't think that is like the consistent standard we've seen from this group, both when AD's off the floor and in games he's missed. So that's a major concern there, both the center position and the defense. You lose Max, who just had a great game against the Knicks, is an emerging 3-and-D guard, 21 years old, on a team-friendly contract. That's a big loss. And then you also lose that 2029 first, which I think with the way they're set up now might not be a valuable pick depending on how things go the rest of the decade, but still is a valuable asset. Of course, though, again, I don't want to overcomplicate or overthink this. Like, you do it 10 out of 10 times. You're getting, in my opinion, a top 3 player in the league who has not even hit his prime yet. He's still 25, and it sets up the Lakers nicely for the post-LeBron era. Now, the short term, I think there are a lot of questions because Luka is currently out right now for what it's worth. Obviously, AD is as well. According to Mark Stein, he was targeting a February 8th return from this calf injury that he's been dealing with. So we'll see. February 8th is 6 days from now. We'll see what ends up happening. That's right after the trade deadline. But it sounds like he should be back before the All-Star break, which for the Lakers, getting at least a game or two with him and LeBron and just seeing how that looks. I don't want to say concerns because I think LeBron and Luka are both smart enough, skilled enough, talented enough to make this work. but there are some clear similarities between how those two guys function offensively. I think LeBron has learned to play with Austin taking on a bigger role, and of course AD having a big part of the offense. So I think he's done that throughout his career with Dwayne Wade, Kyrie Irving, in different guys. So I think he can figure out how to coexist, especially at this point in his career. I think a big part of this is going to be LeBron has improved as a 3-point shooter, as a catch and shoot guy, spot up guy. So if you look at that, like, I think that makes this version of LeBron better suited to play next to Luka than, say, like LeBron at 32 or LeBron at 27. I think he's in a better position to play with Luka. But offensively, like, I think there's a clear ceiling here of, like, you have two, wherever you want to rank LeBron in the overall rankings, I think he's still a top 10 offensive player. So you have, I think the second, with Luka, I think at a minimum, he's the second best offensive player in the league. With Shea and Giannis, you can say maybe their defense vaults them above him, but I think he's the second best offensive player in the league behind Jokic. And you have another top 10, if not top 5, arguably guy in LeBron offensively. And you combine those two together, I think this is going to be an awesome offense. And they got to figure out, it's going to be a new rotation. It's going to be a new starting lineup. It's going to be, I think now is really the time for JJ to start Dorian Finney-Smith over Rui Hachimura. And we'll see. Maybe Rui gets moved in a different deal, and LA tries to get a center now. You could, some of the names I put out there in terms of a Clint Capella, Jakob Poeltl, Miles, like, you have still the pick plus Rui plus a minimum guy. You can go get a center and potentially throw in a pick swap or a second, and like try to overpay to go get a center and shore up the defensive end. I think among the guys that are out there, like, I think Poeltl becomes a little bit more interesting to me just because I think they do need defense, and comparing even him to like a Robert Williams, I think Robert Williams fit what the Lakers needed better when AD was on the roster. But now that they probably need a guy who can play 30 plus minutes, I think that changes kind of the rankings for me in terms of like a Poeltl or Miles Turner. Obviously Walker Kessler, but I think losing one of those picks makes getting Kessler a pipe dream now. But for the Lakers, like, short term, again, figuring out the offense, that there's going to be a bit of a learning curve there. Defensively, there's going to be a major step back, right? Like, losing AD, their best defender, one of the best defenders in the league, really their only plus rim protector, their best defensive rebounder. That is a huge loss that cannot be undersold defensively. Also losing Max, one of their best perimeter defenders, cannot be undersold. And getting in a guy in Luka who is a minus defender, is a guy who at times has approached defense more as optional than anything, like that's a seismic shift within just how this team's makeup. So like, quickly, I would guess the starting lineup would be something like Austin, Luka, LeBron, DFS, and Jackson. I think that's the 5 that makes the most sense. It's like, again, that Jackson spot needs to be upgraded, but what we'll see. So from Dallas' side, it sounded like, in what I've been able to gather and what other people have reported, that they were facing this really a crossroads for them in terms of what path they wanted to go down with Luka. On their end, there were some concerns about his conditioning, about his ability to focus and be a true leader for them, and just about the Supermax and if they wanted to go down that road with him. So that, I think if you're the Lakers, like, you take some of that in, and like, because to me, my first reaction to all this was just like, why would Dallas do this? Like, why would they not hold in a bidding war? And like, as crazy as it sounds, I think if they held a bidding war, that would have been possible to potentially get a better deal than like Anthony Davis and a first. I think that there would have been teams out there that would have offered multiple firsts, potentially young stars for Dallas to kind of rebuild. So like, I think there could have been better theoretical offers than what they got from the Lakers. Maybe it was them doing, like, I'm still trying to kind of figure that part out of, were they just doing Luka a solid, like, why did they pick the Lakers of all teams to offer him to? Because that, to my understanding, is the way this went down. They approached the Lakers. Hey, we're considering trading Luka. Would you be interested? And then they went from there. So it is, I'd say a little bit of a red flag, right? Just that this team was willing to move on from him and kind of give up on him. But at the end of the day, like for the Lakers, I think really one thing I would be excited about if I'm Luka is like playing with LeBron and learning from LeBron and having that guy be your mentor and set the example of how to take care of your body, of how to win a championship, how to get over that hump. Because again, he's already gotten close. He got to the finals. He's gotten to the conference finals. He has the generational talent. But I think if he can put it together and follow the LeBron blueprint, I think this is a guy that can win multiple championships and can do it in a Lakers uniform. So that was my attempt to go talk as coherently as I could for about 15 minutes. Now let's get into some super chats. I know you guys got a lot. And as I said in the chat, I apologize to the people that I didn't get to answer your super chats on the previous version of the stream. Long story, but I tried to cancel it to prevent that from happening, and then I couldn't get back in, so I had to start a new one. Question or super chat from Brian Rhymes: traded top 10 player for top 3 player, Lakers won. I mean, I think that's like the core of it. I do think from a like fit or like a roster perspective, it's obviously tough to grade where the Lakers are at currently because I think it's an incomplete roster. But at its core, you traded, to your point, I think AD I would have had in like the 7-8 range, and you traded him for, in my opinion, a guy who's second or third best player in the league. That's a win. And he's nearly 7 years younger, which is also a win because now you are extending your window to compete. And if LeBron retires after next season, you now have Luka plus whatever players you've kept, and you are in a position now to build the next great Lakers team. So as Brian said, Lakers won the trade, in my opinion. Rolla, AD and Luka should be a straight up swap, no first rounder. So I hear you. I would, the pushback would just be Luka's 7 years younger, which is like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I'll even say, and this isn't like a hindsight thing, but I think AD already this year has like, I don't want to say slipped physically, but like I've noticed physical differences, and I don't think he's been as effective defensively. I've talked about it on here before, and just thinking about like, what is that going to look like when he's 33, when he's 34, when he's 35? I think given the extensive injury history he has, I think it's fair to question like what that's going to look like. Now Luka has his own questions with the conditioning, and clearly Dallas had a firsthand look at him, and they decided they were like, we could all call him a generational talent. They were willing to trade him. So that, again, is a little concerning. But I think that the thing here is just, I think Luka's better than AD. I think if you polled all 30 GMs would take Luka over AD. And then also he's 7 years younger. So I think the first is actually fair value. And then also, obviously, Max Christie. Out my Brainbox 360. I really don't think it's going to be Kessler we trade for. Rob cooking something no one sees coming. Yeah, I mean, certainly possible. He pulled this one off. And I think, didn't touch on it, but like Rob deserves a lot of credit. And I know he's taken a lot of flack and a lot of criticism, but he pulled out, like, I think this has a chance to be a great like franchise multi-year defining trade for the Lakers. So I think Rob deserves a lot of credit and praise for this. And again, a trade no one saw coming. I don't even think Kessler is a possibility anymore, to be honest. Like I think you never want to say never. And maybe Dalton plus a first plus something else gets you in the conversation. But I think they have wanted 2 firsts, and Lakers can no longer do that. So yeah, I think Kessler is probably not happening. Rolla, 80, get me a center, Rob. And you were saying he did get him a center. It's just on a different team. Rolla, Jovan, how do we reshuffle the roster for Luka, AR? It's a good question. I think that like the fallout of this is something that I'm still trying to figure out. And in talking to people around the Lakers, they're still trying to figure out like what's the next move. I mean, clearly, I think that they lost 2 of their best. I mean, their best defender, and then depending on where you want to put Max, like their 4th or 5th best defender. depending on where you slot. Like, I'd say Vando's their second best, and then there's it's DFS, Max, and Gabe in some order. I would probably slot Max above Gabe, and then it's kind of DFS and Max for that like third spot. So their third or fourth best defender and their best defender, they're taking a big step back defensively. And this was a group that was now leaning on a defensive identity. And I do have just some concerns about like Austin, Luka, and LeBron together. That's why I don't think you could play, like, there are certain matchups you could probably play Rui with, but Rui, LeBron, Austin, and Luka is like, that is a problematic defensive quartet. And I think already Luka, AR, and LeBron, there's going to be some concerns there. So I think Rui's role has to change. Rui has to become more of a six-man here. I just think that has to happen. But in terms of reshuffling the roster, I think clearly they need a starting level center, and they probably need another defensive wing now. I would look at like playmaking. They're going to be fine. You got Luka, LeBron, and AD. No more concerns about playmaking. So I think that the move for the Lakers here is trying to trade Gabe or Rui with the other first and getting the best combination of like another big and a wing that you can get with that package. That would be my quick thinking on what the Lakers try to do next. Winston McCarthy, thank you for the super chat. Support a team through the entire LeBron era. Finally get a team that finally has a shot, and boom, life comes at you fast. They have no shot this season. It's, I don't think, like, it's tough because I would like, I'll put it this way. I don't think this current roster has a shot because I just don't think you're going to win a championship with Jackson Hayes as your starting center. But I would be surprised if they do not make a second move and, go for a starting center and what can you get for Rui or Gabe? And then if you flip Rui for Jakob Poeltl or Miles Turner or Clint Capella, I think we're having a different conversation here about, like, let's just say it's Poeltl theoretically. Poeltl, DFS, or Poeltl, LeBron, DFS, Luka, and Austin. I like that starting lineup a lot more. And then off the bench, I still don't love the backup center spot, but maybe you can flip. Can you go get a Day'Ron Sharpe for a minimum guy and a second? Lakers still have a second to trade, or even a pick swap, which wouldn't be ideal, but like I think you got to problem solve with some of these issues. Probably more along the lines of a second. But can you go get a Day'Ron Sharpe to be your backup center, and then you would still have Vando. Theoretically, you flipped Rui here, so it'd be something like Vando, Gabe. And depending on Kleba's health status, he did, he is going to be out for a bit. He's not been officially ruled out yet for the rest of the season. So can he come back? And then can you, like it's like the depth is a concern because you really traded two starters for one, and that is changed. Like this was already a team that we were talking about, like outside the top 7, maybe top 8. There's not a lot of confidence in that group. Well, you just took away 2 of those top 7 or 8 and brought in 1. And in the long term, I think they're better set up to compete and be in the post LeBron era. But in the short term, you could make a case that like this new roster is imbalanced, and even if they add a center, it's still kind of imbalanced. So I don't want to say they have no shot, but it is going to require a second trade. That I think that is fair to say. Eeg, thank you for the super chat. I get this as a long-term move, but the title is winnable literally this year. Get a center. Everyone can go. Luka, LeBron, DFS. If the Reeves return is high, he can go too. Everyone should be on the block. No pun intended for my show. To your point, I mean, I think anything's on the table at this point, right? Like, could they trade LeBron and just tear this all down and kind of go shift to a rebuild? Could they trade Austin and go in a different direction? If they traded AD, who is their best player and supposed to be the post LeBron next face of the franchise, anything's possible. So I can't rule out any of it, right? Like, and even they traded Max, right? Like Max was a guy in that inner circle of an internal discovery, and a guy they got in the second round, a guy that they saw the talent in. They made a big bet on him this summer, and he hit big on that bet. I think he's already outplayed his contract. Like if Max Christie was entering free agency this summer, he'd be getting, I think, at least a mid-level, if not slightly higher based on his age. So Lakers did great with that contract, but they traded him. They traded the 2029 first. I've reported, others have reported, like they were a bit skittish on potentially trading one of their firsts, let alone both. They went out and traded it. So a lot that we thought we knew about the Lakers has changed just in the past couple of hours. And so I'm not ruling anything out. I think anything's possible. I think they could tear it down to rebuild around Luka, or they could invest more to go all in. Like I haven't gotten a great sense as to like what they're going to do. My like gut reaction would be they go get a center and try to compete with this group. But again, I think you could make a case that trading 2 starters for one for a team that already had some depth issues, you are like potentially taking a step back, especially when there is some overlap with like now their 3 best players are Luka, LeBron, and Austin. And you can make a case like those are all 3 guys who are at their best with the ball in their hands. And that we've seen through NBA history, there are some limitations when you put so many guys who need the ball. Now, I think Austin is used to playing off the ball. He's done it before. He's a good shooter. LeBron's a good shooter. And Luka is a good shooter. So I think it's going to be a learning curve in terms of figuring out how the offense functions now. But I think, to your point, like anything is possible. Rama's Aviation, thank you for the super chat. Do you think we have a higher chance of building out this roster or trading James? I would say building out this roster. But again, I at this point, I'd be lying to you guys if I'm ruling anything out. I think everything's on the table. But I think building out the roster. The Tribe 1, could we get Time Lord or even better, Miles Turner? I think Miles Turner is probably less likely now. Maybe a first and Dalton and like Rui, Dalton, and a first gets you close. I think Time Lord you can get. My understanding is they're looking for a first. I proposed in my trade target piece that they give up a protected first. I don't know if they would do that, but my one concern with Time Lord is he has been on kind of a minutes restriction, and he does have the injury history. So you're putting a lot of eggs in a basket of a guy who might just not be physically capable of doing what you're asking him to do. So I would lean more toward like Miles Turner if you could get him. Of course, Walker Kessler, but I doubt they could get him now. And then I would look at Jakob Poeltl and Clint Capella as guys who are obviously a step down from the Miles Turner types, but can at least credibly play like high 20s into low 30s. And like I think Poeltl is probably, in my opinion, the most realistic like target that I'd be trying to get if I'm the Lakers now. I think he'd really fit. Now, they wanted 2 firsts. That Lakers can't give them 2 firsts. I don't think he's worth 2 firsts. I don't think anyone's giving up 2 firsts for him. So could it be, again, like Rui, Dalton, and a first? That I think is interesting. Mavs knew Luka was not resigning. There's nothing deeper than that for a player who's going to leave. They got a haul, in my opinion. So what's interesting is from the Dallas side, and obviously I'm not as plugged in on the Dallas side. Like they've been refuting this and saying that it wasn't about this. That it, like they were. It's kind of like a breakup, right? You get out ahead of it, and you say, I left them, or it was mutual, or whatever you say. So I think there's certainly an element of that. Like my gut reaction is I lean more toward you. Like it's easy. Like there'd been a little bit of buzz about them not being like the happiest with Luka, but not anywhere in terms of like them trading him. And I think it's easy to come out and say now, oh, he's out of shape. We didn't believe in him. We wanted to trade him. Like I think to your point that, and this is not something that's sourced, so I hope I don't get aggregated, but like my read is probably he was looking ahead and like maybe things were more acrimonious than we thought. And maybe he was like, I'm eventually going to go to the Lakers, or I'm not going to resign here. And he wasn't happy and they weren't happy. And then they decided, okay, well, we'll give you your wish. We'll trade you to the Lakers. And that's what happened. So to be clear, that's not source. So please don't aggregate me. But as I'm trying to piece this all together, like there's still some pieces in the puzzle that don't quite add up. And that's what I'm trying to report on over, the next few hours and 24 hours. Jackson, Jovan, was there any indication this was going to happen? No. No. LA trade idea. ARDK, Gabe, Wood, Cam, and a first for Dayron, Cam, and Jalen Wilson. Start Dayron, LBJ, Cam, Vando, Luka, bench Rui, DFS, Cam, T. Okay, that's a long one. Okay, so there's a lot of Cams in it. There's a lot of so you're saying Cam Johnson and Cam Thomas. I don't think the Lakers would do this. I think they value Austin and Dalton and that first. I think they'd want more than Cam Johnson and Cam Thomas. I think Austin's better than Cam Johnson. I think obviously the fit, he'd arguably be a better fit next to LeBron and Luka, probably would be, but I think they wouldn't like giving up Austin and Dalton and a first. So I would say the Lakers probably don't do this, but I like where your head's at, and I think getting a Cam Johnson now would also make a lot of sense. I would probably prioritize a center. One thing with Dayron is we just haven't seen him in a playoff setting, what that would look like. I do like him, and I think they should try and get him, but I would probably like it more in the context of adding a Pirtle or a Capella or someone who we have a little bit more of a track record with. But I do like Dayron. LeBron in short roll, then they double Luka. My God, Title and Pelinka hands, get size and shooting. I'm in shock. My God, Luka was out. They knew. Yeah, I mean, Luka LeBron pick and roll is going to be incredible. Just that two-man game. And again, there's going to be a learning curve, but I think if two guys can figure it out, two guys like that can figure it out. So yeah, size and shooting. I'm with you. Rolla, Yo-Yo, who would you want as the Lakers' next move? As I just said, Pirtle. If you can do Cam Johnson and Dayron for your a first, a swap, and a second, I'd be interested in that. Cam was the one wing that I thought I had in my trade targets that of course, I would probably go down my, can you get Walker Kessler? Can you get Miles Turner? Can you get Cam Johnson? And then outside of that, Bruce Brown to me doesn't make as much sense anymore. I think they probably need another bigger wing. Lonzo doesn't make as much sense. Time Lord still makes sense depending on the price, but I don't know if I trust him as a starting center. Pirtle I still like. Io I still like, but probably not as the main move. And then 9 and 10 were Capella and Sexton. Sexton does I don't think the small guards make as much sense anymore. You got enough playmaking as is. I think going and getting, I think in terms of realistic move, Pirtle plus something else, or a Cam Johnson and a Dayron with your remaining pick assets. That those either one of those, I think Cam next to Luka LeBron is incredible, but really I probably lean more toward the Pirtle route of being a realistic guy you could get with that first. Just so you guys know, I do have to go in about 5. I'm going to try and rattle through these as quickly as I can. I apologize, but I do have to get back to writing. Harry Chinani, very shocking. Is this in going all in trade for this season or tear it down trade for the future? We will miss AD. I think it's too early to tell. And again, I'd be lying if the people I've talked to within the organization don't really know either. It does sound more like a going for it trade. And really, I think it was more opportunistic. I don't think there was some grand calculation here of we're going to again, my understanding, and as others have reported, Dallas approached the Lakers. This was not the Lakers thinking Luka was available. They made a very quiet behind the scenes offer to them. And that's how this went. So I think it was just a trade they couldn't turn down. They're you're offering us a top 3 player who's 25. We have to do this and figure it out later. So I think they're now in the figuring it out phase, and we'll see what that looks like. Jovan, you need Red Bull or tequila or both. I respect the professionalism, but this trade needs juice. I'm running on fumes here, and I'm about to probably pull it all-nighter. But I had a monster earlier, if that counts. Jalen, what moves other than center do you see the Lakers making in the coming days? Also, with AD being traded, do you think there's a chance we trade AR-15? As I said earlier, I can't rule out anyone being traded at this point. I think everything's on the table. So I think there's certainly a chance that Austin could be moved depending on what else is out there. I don't anticipate that, but I can't rule it out. I would say center and wing. Those are the two things I think they need. I think they need another 3-and-D type wing. I really think they only had 2 3-and-D wings in Rui and Max. And now they lost one of those guys, so they need to go replenish that. Jerry Soriani, your lender for life. Rob P, co-signed by Kobe, is all I ever needed. Fair point. Can't dispute that. Lakers, LA lost his trade Jovan. We were 1 to 2 pieces away from 18. Luka could have hit free agency in 2026 and signed with cap space post LeBron. Why else did Dallas rush? I mean, it's fair pushback, but there's no like stars don't leave in free agency as often. There was also a chance he just took the Supermax if Dallas offered that, and I think if they were keeping him, I don't like. I think before that they would have tried to trade him to someone else if it wasn't the Lakers. I don't think they were just going to let him walk in free agency. So he didn't have a no trade clause, so they could have traded him. But I don't have a great read on, like, it's still shocking to me. I'm still in shock about this whole thing. I did not, can Daya Foods quit this love affair with Austin? Rui and Austin will get back Kessler, another solid player. Well, salary wise, it does not work, and it does not work with Colin Sexton either. So, that's that's a part of it. You know, Kessler's making less than $3 million. Austin's making just under 13. Rui's making 18. So the math doesn't math there. But I think anything's on the table. The Tribe one, Luka Braun 1-4, even 4-1 pick and roll could go either way, and it's going to be dangerous. Glenn, February 1st, 08, Lakers get Powell. February 1st, 2025, Lakers get Luka. Yeah, that's something about February 1st. Jonesy, Kleba had surgery 2 days ago. Foot surgery takes a year to recover from. Luka has not played in 25 games. What if Braun retires in 2 years and Luka decides to walk? We are so effed. So I know Kleba had surgery, I guess, and quickly, I mean, he's obviously more of an afterthought, but it didn't say, at least what I read, it didn't say he was ruled out for the season. It just said they were going to update it for a later time, but obviously not having him for this season would hurt. Because I do think Kleba is a solid rotation player and actually a guy who could play like stretch 5. I mean, you're laying out the worst case scenario, and that can certainly happen. But I think history suggests Luka is going to stay a Laker for a long time. So that's what I think. Out my brain box 360. You think Mavs found a long-term issue with Luka? Certainly possible. Again, I think now they're airing the dirty laundry, but I don't know. It's still, it doesn't really, like, parts of this don't add up to me. Eeg, I think this changes Braun's window too. Talk about extending career playing off ball, go chill in the court until the 4th. That's another part of this that I didn't even think about really, but now that you say that, like, LeBron can do less, and he can age into being more of like the second star in a way that, because ultimately, I think we saw like AD had some great offensive performances, but I do think there was a lack of overall consistency with his offensive game. And I think part of it has been on coaching. Part of it has been on the way the offense has been run. Part of it has been on LeBron likes to have the ball a certain amount. And that's obviously something they'll have to figure out with Luka. But Luka's in a different stratosphere. I keep saying that, but like he's a different level than AD is offensively. So like, I don't, to your point, I think you can extend Braun. Lee Baggy, are the Lakers not aiming for a chip this year? I wouldn't say that. I mean, the crazy thing with this is that the Lakers got they got the best player in the deal. I know like fans seem to be taking it multiple ways. So I don't think there's a wrong way to take it, but like, I think if you polled Laker fans earlier today and said, hey, would you give up this package for Luka, or would you trade for Luka? I think a lot of them would say yes. And again, it's a steep price. I'm not saying it's not, but They got the best player, and he's almost 7 years younger. So I think it's hard to say they're not going for a championship. I think what will ultimately determine that is the next move. If they stand pat, then like again, they made a talent upgrade and a long-term upgrade, but short-term, there's some clear holes in this roster. You're not winning a championship with Jackson Hayes as your starting center. If they go get another center, obviously they're going for it. If they trade LeBron, trade Austin, like burn it all down outside of Luka, then obviously we have our answer there. So I think really the next 4 to 5 days are going to tell us. I don't have a great read on it, but again, my early sense talking to people and just kind of gut reaction, I think they are going for it, and I think there will be a second move. Harry Chinani, my phone was buzzing with my friends texting me. My heart started racing when I saw the news. Haven't felt like this ever since I woke up to Kobe passing 5 years ago. Most shocking trade ever. I think it's the most, like I started it. I think this is the most shocking trade in NBA history because you had a generational superstar in Luka, not even hitting their prime yet. A guy who's been billed as like, you know, again, compared to LeBron, a guy who's been in the finals, conference finals, a guy who people have talked about, like who's the next face of the league, who's the next guy going to grab that mantle. And like, he's been in that conversation. He's not even 27, 28 yet in his physical prime. And, you know, this happens. So it's, and then like you have AD and he's coming out, kind of calling out the front office to go get a setter. And LA has talked about having the offense run through him, and like he's the next guy, and they want to cater the next iteration of Lakers basketball around him. And again, you got the picks, max, like all these things that they were saying, we don't want to trade this stuff. We don't want to, and then the Luka offer comes and they do it. So certainly the most shocking trade I can recall. And of course, I wasn't around in the 60s, 70s, 80s when some of the other big trades in NBA history happened. But really, like, this is, you don't see a superstar for superstar, like 2 top 10 guys get traded out of the blue like this for each other. It's typically like, it's like the James Harden trade, or it's the Kawhi, like Kawhi PG was a big one, but I think Luka's at a different level than PG. And you kind of knew that Kawhi, like, it was trending toward Kawhi going to the Clippers. It was just a matter of like, who's the other guy potentially coming with him. No one had Paul George, but that was a shocking one. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. There's a lot of like shocking trades. This one is like no intel, no. ESPN reported LeBron found out at dinner and didn't even know. Like, this is just insane. K-Rock 004. Hey, Jovan, I know this came out of nowhere. Do you have any inkling of a trade outside of this one possibly happening, or was it quiet on all fronts? I mean, I had been hearing and talk, like I was talking about it with people at the game today, and it continued to be like, there's not much of a market. The Lakers don't have attractive contracts. That, you know, their picks are almost too valuable to give up for some of these role players. Like, they're probably going to make a smaller move. And then a few hours later, they make this trade. So I don't, in terms of the next move, I think a center is the obvious thing that, like, again, you already needed another center. Now you got rid of your one rotation starting caliber center. Obviously, he's much more than that, but like, you get what I'm saying. You need to go get another one. That's like the only thing I can say on that front. But yeah, no inklings that a deal was close. Like, I was just in the Lakers locker room less than 20-ish minutes before this happened, and there was no signs of anything. 20 to 30, whatever. Eeg, it's easy to call the ex fat, ugly, and controlling when she denied your marriage proposal. Dallas sounds like a salty, emotional teenager. Well said. The Tribe 1, I want Claxton for a start and Yabusele for our bench. I would like Claxton. I don't know if it's unclear what Brooklyn wants. That they might want a couple of firsts, which I think might be a little high. Laker Sean, favor. Any chance you can redo the top 10 trade targets? That's a good idea. I will redo it, and might be like top 5 instead of top 10, but I will redo it for you guys. Sam Fly, center trade next, maybe Rui and Dalton for Turner, something like that. If I'm the Lakers, like I do want to think about the next iteration of what things look like, and I do think Dalton should factor into that theoretically. At the same time, I think you could argue, like, from a ceiling perspective, that if Luka and LeBron can figure this out, which again, I think they should be able to figure out at least the offensive end, and you could get another 3-and-D wing and a big, I think there's a scenario when the Lakers can still make a lot of noise in the West, and like, again, depending on which center they get. So if you could get a Turner, and it does require Rui, Dalton, and a first, and even a swap or a second or whatever, I would go do that if you can. Christian, how frustrated do you think JJ will get with Luka not playing defense? LOL. Well, JJ and Luka, another part of this I haven't yet touched on. Like, so Luka, obviously, he's got the guys coming from Dallas that he knows, but he and LeBron have had a good relationship. Remember that there have been rumors about LeBron potentially going to Dallas and teaming up with Luka and Kyrie there, last year or a couple years ago. And so Luka and LeBron have a good relationship. JJ played with Luka in Dallas, has had him on his podcast, and like loves Luka. So I'm sure he will get frustrated with some of the defensive mistakes. They're gonna, like, the defense and the conditioning are gonna have to get better for Luka in LA. That's just gonna have to happen. And I'm sure there will be some viral clips of JJ getting upset, but I think he's gonna live with having a talent like Luka. Kane Carter, imagine if this is a ploy for 80's new show. This is that's what's funny is I actually I was supposed to, through one of his marketing partnerships, I was actually supposed to get an interview with 80 next Friday for like 10 minutes over the phone. I don't know if that's still happening. We'll see. I hope it does. That would be a great 10-minute interview, but I wouldn't be surprised if it gets canceled now. Braden, I've never been heartbroken and happy at the same time. I will miss 80. We got a Serb in LA, brate. Yes, Luka's dad is Serbian. He is half Serbian, half Slovenian. So on a personal note, that'll be nice for me and something we can bond over. But I think it's the perfect way to wrap. I said I was going to go 30. I went a little bit over, as you guys have come to expect. But I do have to get back to writing and reporting. I will, if it's not too late, try to go live then. If not, I will certainly go live tomorrow. Like, there will be a live within the next, let's say 12 hours for sure, but potentially 2. And then I will redo the center trade targets, continue reporting this all out, and have more information for you guys as soon as I can. But I appreciate you all. By far the biggest stream we've had, over 2,500 people in here. I appreciate you all so much for watching and listening. If you have not yet subscribed, I hope tonight was a preview of what you can expect moving forward and the type of work I've done in the past. But that will do it for tonight's show. Again, potentially we'll be back. We'll try to be back at some point again tonight. But if not in the morning, I'm probably not sleeping tonight, to be honest, or sleeping very briefly. So I will be around. I just got to first finish the story I'm working on, and then can potentially be back. So for those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back at some point soon in the next couple hours to 8 to 12 hours. I'm not quite sure yet, but I will be back very soon with more intel, more information, more analysis, more answering your guys' questions. But I appreciate you all. Shout out to the late night gang. Technically not 12 yet in LA. So, but my body clock's all messed up. I've been on the road for 10 days, but I appreciate you all. I'm rambling now, and I will talk to you all very soon.